to the Municipality of South Dundas for its meeting with its council team for Monday, June the 19th. I'm going to recall the meeting to order as we were in closed session that started at 5:30. So I have a motion. Let it be resolved that council rise and reconvene into open session without reporting at 5:59 p.m. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, number 3, confirmation of agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda? Clerk LeBrun.
Yes, thank you for you, Mayor Broad. We do have an item that we will be adding under bylaw. So it will be item 9G, appointing a director of fire and emergency services.
Okay, 9F.
Correct.
Very good. Yeah. So added. Any other additions, deletions, or amendments? All right. Seeing none, I have a motion. Let it be resolved that the Council of Municipality approves the agenda as amended. Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Number 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Any disclosures tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to number 5, adoption of minutes. Any errors or discussions or admissions to the meeting minutes of May 19th, May 23rd, May 29th, and May 30th? We had a busy week. No errors or admissions. I have a motion to resolve that we resolve that the minutes of the following meetings, including closed sessions, be adopted as circulated. Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, number 6, which have us with people in attendance for the first time at a South Dundas municipal meeting. I have a motion that the public meeting to consider a zoning bylaw amended be opened at 6:01 p.m. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. I now declare that the public meeting held by the Council of Municipality of South Dundas under Section 34 of the Planning Act now be open. There is one zoning amendment application to be considered. That is a proposed amendment to zoning bylaw 2010-49 Notman. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of, contrary to any of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments will be given the opportunity to do so. Before you make a presentation, I would ask that you move to the microphone, provide your name and address. I am required by the Planning Act to advise you that if you do not make an oral presentation or a written submission before the proposed zoning bylaw amendments are adopted by the Municipal Council tonight, you will not be entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If you wish to make an oral submission to the application this evening, we ask you raise your hand, move forward, make your comments when called upon to speak. I will now ask our planning consultant, Stephanie Moron, to provide a brief overview of the individual application. Following the report, we'll open the floor to anyone wishing to make an oral presentation on the application. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. All right, so as discussed, we're here to discuss application number Z 2023-02. This is a property on Cherry Street in the former township of Williamsburg. Okay, so this meeting is being held pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act, and requests to be notified of the decision may be submitted to myself at planner@southdundas.com or to the clerk. So just to go over sort of how this public meeting will sort of play out. This meeting is an open forum for the public and council to gather information, ask questions, and voice comments and concerns. An overview of the zoning amendment will be provided, and followed by an opportunity for the applicant to comment or present. Following the presentation, there will be an opportunity for comments and questions from the public and council, and an opportunity for the applicant to address them. A decision may be made later this evening or at a later date. A 20-day period of appeal begins following the decision. And as Mayor Broad described, I'll repeat it again. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of South Dundas before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Municipality of South Dundas before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'll describe sort of how planning works. So at the provincial level, the provincial policy statements 2020 are the current policy statements in effect. And they're sort of general in nature, but it is a statement of the government's policies on land use planning. It applies province-wide and provides clear policy direction on land use planning to promote strong communities, a strong economy, and a clean and healthy environment. The Planning Act, in Section 3, a decision of a municipality in respect of the exercise of any authority that affects a planning matter shall be consistent with the policy statements issued. The Planning Act is sort of the document that we're bound by, and it sort of tells us what we can do and how we do it. So from a top-down approach, you've got your provincial policy statements, and then you've got the county official plan. The United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry official plan outlines a set of goals and objectives for development in the county for the next 20 years while having regard for the effects on the social, economic, and natural environment of the municipality. It contains policies to be used for the review of development applications and any other planning decisions. And then at the local level, we've got the township zoning bylaw. A zoning bylaw controls the use of land in a municipality by designating land parcels with specific land zones. Oh, what did I just do here? There we go. The bylaw specifies that permitted uses, so whether it's commercial, agricultural, residential, and the required standards, so things like building size, location, setbacks, building height, in each zone. Zoning bylaws and any amendments to the zoning bylaw must conform to the official plan. Under the Planning Act, Section 24.1, public works and bylaws to conform with the plan. Despite any other general or special act where an official plan is in effect, no public work shall be undertaken, and except as provided in subsections 2 and 4, no bylaw shall be passed for any purpose that does not conform therewith. Okay? So at this time, we'll sort of move on to the application. So the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone part of lots 36 and 37, concession 1, geographic township of Williamsburg, being the severed and retained portions of consent application B13522 Cherry Street, from residential hamlet to residential hamlet special exception 33 and residential hamlet special exception 34. So you'll see sort of the severed and retained in that map. The zoning amendment seeks to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 40 meters to 22.08 meters for the severed portion, and from 40 meters to 23.48 meters for the retained portion. As well, to reduce the minimum lot area from 3,000 square meters to 1,280 square meters for the severed portion, and from 3,000 square meters to 1,450 square meters for the retained portion. This zoning amendment seeks to fulfill a condition of consent approval, severance approval. Okay, so what you're seeing right now is the map of the official plan, and you'll notice that the pink color with that sort of hatching identifies that it's in the urban settlement area and it's designated residential district. So the zoning for the property currently is residential hamlet, as is the land for the most part around it. And then we're proposing that orange parcel to be special exception 33 and the purple parcel to be special exception 34. So to date, staff have received 2 letters. And at the time of writing of the report, it was 1 letter. Okay, so one formal letter was received dated May 30th, 2023, from the landowners of 12071 Millward Street, and that's directly east and across the street from the severed portion of consent B13522. Their letter, for the most part, details their concerns related to the environment, adequate drinking water, and safe septic for the future. And they've also discussed that the assessments done as part of the severance process did not include the future effects of climate change. The second letter that we received was received on Friday, and it was from another neighboring property owner, which the messaging was very similar. They talked about that the criteria that was used to review the hydrogeological report, topographic survey, and scaled site plan only reflects the current conditions, and that it was based that it's limited scientific criteria that it was established against. And that the writer of that letter is also here as well tonight. So as I sort of mentioned, there was a hydrogeological study done, a topographic survey, and a scaled site plan. And those three were done as part of the complete application for the severance process. And those three studies essentially address adequate drinking supply, ensuring that there is a building envelope despite all of the setbacks in the zoning bylaw, the floodplain, neighboring wells, and the topographic study identified the location of that 1 in 100 year flood plain to ensure that any future dwelling would be located outside of it. And just lastly, I have up there the scaled site plan that was provided, just for ease of reference. The applicant is present here tonight, and I will turn it back to you.
Okay. First off, I'll ask, does any of the council team have a specific question for Stephanie before we call on Councillor Smith?
I did have a question. It's kind of unrelated. It's just kind of a just something that popped in my head. Why is it that basically why does the lot not go all the way to the river? I know that there's like a setback there, and the riverbank runs more or less straight. Why are the lot lines on an angle? That was just the first thing that popped in my head, because like there's kind of a significant portion of land there still to the river's edge. I just wondered why that was.
That's the floodplain.
That's floodplain.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there is a setback from that floodplain, and the South Nation Conservation Authority reviewed the hydrogeologic study, the topographic survey, which is what established that floodplain, where it is exactly on the property,
Okay.
As well as a scaled site plan.
Okay. So are there actual like survey like pins in the ground there, or no?
I don't believe so, but I'm not exactly familiar
Not
with
sure. Okay.
survey principles.
Okay. just curious.
They're usually gathering just specific points along to make
Okay.
sure that they're establishing that it's well outside a certain elevation.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Seeing no others at this time, I'll call upon anybody from the audience that wishes to make an oral statement. You can come forward and sit in the chair, and we have the microphone for you because we are live on YouTube. Come ahead. Yes, please. Just state your name and current address, please.
Thank you. Is that on?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Tracy Zander. I'm from Zander Plan. I'm the planning consultant that's been helping the Notmans with this. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things, and then I think perhaps there's some residents that want to speak, and then I can answer questions at the end. As your planner indicated, this is a zoning amendment to satisfy a condition of consent. So the United Counties have already approved this severance. The survey is done in response to Councillor Smith. The boundaries of this property, the bars are in the ground. The survey is complete and has a reference plan number on it. As you heard from your planner, there's a number of studies and reports that have been completed. So I appreciate this is a small lot that's being proposed. Both the severed and retained do require exceptions to your zoning bylaw. But the studies to support that have been completed. We know there's a housing crisis in Ontario. This is an opportunity to create an infill lot inside one of your settlement areas. The hydrogeology study was completed based on standards in science in Ontario and appropriately peer-reviewed by the Conservation Authority. And it demonstrated that both the severed and retained lots, although on the small side, can function with private wells and septic systems. So that was one task that was completed. And as your planner said, the topographic survey and evaluated where the floodplain was, and we've demonstrated through a scaled site plan that a building envelope can fit on both the severed and retained lots. So again, a small lot, but all of the policies from the provincial policy statement through the official plan and down encourage infill lot creation in your settlement areas, and that's exactly what is being proposed here. I'm here obviously and happy to answer some questions, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you very much for more information and clarification. Thank you. Residents, oral submissions, please step forward.
Mayor Broad and South Dundas Council. My name is Ralph Brick. I reside at 5698 Cherry Street, which is two properties down from the property that wants a proposed amendment. We don't have any personal interest in that property, and I say that specifically because Councillor Vino is my employer. Okay, so first and foremost, I think everybody should recognize we're a residential community. We're not, anything else. There's, I think, as the consultant stated, we brought 1 million people into this country last year. We need to build homes, and that's why that's why I'm here today. At least with our decision. I did a lot of, not an enormous amount, but I did do some research on this. We did receive a letter back in December. I did contact Ms. Moran at the time, and she walked me through the process. She told me the Notmans had been very respectful of the process. They hired a consultant to make sure that everything was done in accordance with the rules of the county and the municipality. When they did satisfy the county's requirements, and they had at that time done that, and I think there was a few minor issues that still had to be resolved, if they did do that, it would be approved by the county, and I think that's why we're here today. I did speak with the Notmans also about this, not that it was any of my business, but I want you just a few things. The Notmans have owned that property for 24 years, and they originally did buy it with the purpose of severing it at some time, and I guess life got in the way, and they're finally here doing it. They want to build a retirement home on that land, and they've already been residents of Mariahtown for 40 years, so they're not a developer coming in trying to just make a quick buck. They've been working 2.5 years almost on this severance, and I obtained that information from the county, not from them, and I think they've spent a significant amount of money on that. And just that they've had to spend 2.5 years through this process and that amount of money, and I think it's tens of thousands of dollars. It's at the dentist today, that's why I'm selling that. It is quite, shocking to me that, a resident has to take that amount of time, and especially when they've owned that land and they're a resident of our community, so just a point. I think also the municipality has granted numerous building permits over the last little while on undersized lots, at least it appears so, and on waterfront. I'm not an expert, I don't know what prompted all those building permits to be issued, but I don't think that this is anything different than what's happened in the community in the past, I would say, 3-4 years. This decision is hard for everybody in our community. I'm not insensitive to the fact that it may cut off some views, for the river. Our community, a lot of us have lived there over 10 years. A lot of us, our grandchildren were born at the same time. Louise Castle, my next door neighbor, and I, we share a beach, and we invite our community to use it. And I certainly hope after the decision today we continue to act like that, because I think this decision has to be made on fact and nothing else, okay? In summary, I want you to know that Mariahtown is a residential community, and there's going to be probably more lots coming up to build, and you know, it certainly has our full endorsement of that. As I stated, the Notmans have resided in our town for 40 years. They've owned that property for 24 years. They wish to build a retirement home on it, and as far as I remember, too, at the notes I made, they are grandfathered to be able to supply this without going to the Ontario Land Tribunal. I think that's what Ms. Moran told me at the time. And you know, based on what I just told you, I want you to know that my wife and I are pleased to fully support their application, to support their dream to build a retirement home in the community they love. You know, and you know, there's really, I don't think anything else underlying than that condition in this case. So with that, I thank you for your time and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Brick.
Okay.
Question, Deputy Mayor?
Actually, you said, because you just mentioned about the tribunal, can you just clarify what he just mentioned about the grandfather?
There is no grandfathering, but this process has occurred before. It's very common, even if you're doing a privately serviced subdivision. While the provincial standard is 1 acre on private services, if you go through the studies, a hydrogeological study and a terrain analysis, to identify that the land can support more dwellings, then historically it has been across SDNG, it has been allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Through similar zoning
course.
processes.
Other residents, comments?
Morning, politician on yours.
Mr. Fortune, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Linda LaFortune, and I live at 11497 Lakeshore Drive. And I'm also here to address this on behalf of Louis and Victoria, who live right across the street from where this development is going to take place. I want to begin by thanking the municipal staff for the planning staff has been very good to brief me on the provincial policy statement and to brief me on the official plan. I wrote you a report in which I concluded, and that would have been how a bureaucrat would have written that to you, which says that according to the official plan, you shouldn't do this. But the provincial policy statement has overridden your official plan. That official plan has been drawn up to regulate development for the next 20 years. And it's the vision of this community, the way our little hamlets should have been developed. And I believe that at the time this property was purchased, it was well known that cutting it in half was not a permitted use. You would have to go through a process to cut it in half. So there's no surprise here for anybody who purchased the property. What I'm concerned about is how much can we rely on official plans if the province overrides them? This official plan was drafted by the municipality with the municipal planners. And it said, this is the way things should be developed. Considering that we only have sewers, waters, we have septic systems and wells. We don't have water and sewer. Now, yes, we have infill development within the plan. And yes, the provincial policy statement says infill development. But it stresses in areas with municipal services. Why did the provincial government throw that out the window by saying that tiny little clause that says where it can be shown it's okay to do? If you look at those studies that were presented, the hydrological studies, and I verified this, they can't look at the past performances of the wells there. They've got no historical data to say whether the wells are still functioning as well as they used to. And they're not allowed to look to the future. will these wells still be producing as much water? And I say to you, if you look at everybody that's talking about climate change, they're warning us, drier, hotter summers ahead. And if you look at what we're doing in the region north of us, where the watershed is, where the water comes down to that hamlet, we're taking away all the trees that keep water in the ground. We're putting on cornfields that suck up water and put it up into the air. So eventually, my fear is that those wells are going to start to dry up. Maybe not in our time, maybe in our children or our grandchildren, but that's going to affect their future. And I'll tell you what a wise young Indigenous woman said at a meeting, probably in her 20s. She told her fellow students at university, do not say that this is the hottest day of your whole life. This is the hottest summer. Think of this as the coolest summer for the rest of your life. And it's in the policy statement, climate change, hot. Why do we completely disregard that and only rely on hydrological studies that talk about the here and now? And as I stated in my written presentation, the neighbor on the other side is about to go through this same process of severing her lot in order to build another lot next door, right? So you're going to have 4 small lots all beside one another. And then I look at my property. I have 2 lots on that side vacant, I have 2 lots on that side vacant, and I have a lot across the road. What if they all decide to start splitting their lots? You're going to go through the same whole process. It may cost them money, but is that what we want to see? Is that your vision of our hamlet and Lakeshore Drive, where we only have sewers, septic tanks, and wells? In fact, if all of this starts and everybody in the hamlet that wants to chop a lot in half, I see many, many systems, and if it gets as dry as they say, somewhere down the road, you're going to be putting in water and sewer for us, and that'll be very costly. And some of the first people to ask for it will be those who are wanting to infill, because you let them do it, so you have to get water. You have to get water out there. So I look at this and I think, is this good planning? Just because the province says so. When you put in this plan, this official plan of ours, you put it in according to their rules. You put in the zoning bylaws that would enforce their rules. And now they're throwing it out the window. In my submission, I came to the conclusion that you don't really have much choice, your hands are tied. Well, that's the bureaucrats' response to you, the advice that they would give you. Don't oppose this, it's only going to go to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and they're only going to say the same thing. You don't have to consider the future. But, morally, don't we have to fight for the citizens and what we believe is future planning? Is this your vision for the hamlet? These small lots, not much bigger than what you have in the settled areas with water and sewer, and we'll start popping water and sewer system or septic tanks and wells all over the place. It's chaos. So I have nothing against the people who want to build a newer home. My sympathy is that you can't have the vision that you want. But where do their rights end and ours begin? And quite frankly, why not just get rid of the old house that's there and put a nice, beautiful house in the middle and have a lovely lot all around it? There is an alternative for the person who wants to do this.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Fortune.
I've taken the complete opposite approach of what I wrote you. I had a crisis of conscience to try and represent the people who are really concerned about planning and the future and who believe that climate change is upon us. I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time as well.
Oh, I forgot one thing. This isn't the last part of it, is it? Because all you're doing tonight is telling them, yeah, you can have a lot that size. But before they can build on it, they have to put in a plan for a septic system and then a plan for a house that will go with that septic system. And according to this diagram, you can put a 2,000 square foot home on there. But the current zoning bylaw says that because there's a street, and I think even if it isn't open, you have to abide by that, you got to knock off 23 feet because you have to stay 23 feet from the street on one side. So now his frontage is down to something like 50, and then on the other side, you got to leave about 10 feet for the setback, so that you're going to end up with a house that you can only build about 40 feet wide. So the next step, he'll be applying for a committee of adjustment hearing so that he can build closer to the lot line. Now, if it gets to that, I'll be back.
Thank you, Ms. LaFortune. Thank you. Comments or questions at this point? Mr. Allison, come forward, sorry, nope, come ahead. Hi.
Peter Quigley. I live at 5687 Cherry Street, directly across from the property in question. Can I ask you a question first?
Absolutely.
On the south side of the proposed development, there's an easement there, a fire lane,
There is an open road allowance.
and that's for fire access to the river, so they can get their pumper truck in there, because there are no hydrants in the neighborhood.
Possibly.
Have we consulted the fire service on this matter?
It would have been circulated. I haven't received anything from them.
Okay. I live in the neighborhood. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not upset about this proposed change. I'm going to try and keep my temper. The applicant here already owns one of the nicer lots in the neighborhood. If we want a retirement home, $30,000, you can put an elevator in that'll take a wheelchair from your basement to your attic. We are going to change the, sorry, do you have a question?
So, yeah, sorry, stop for a second.
We need to keep this to the subject property and not about hypotheticals on what they can do and what they can't do for their retirement. We need to keep this about the property.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just
Thank
don't
you,
want to get
Mayor.
into any personal, it's not the subject that we're
Okay.
talking about.
Right now, you're being presented with an illegal application under the zoning bylaws.
They're applying to amend the zoning bylaw.
So as it goes right now, this sort of thing isn't in the plan.
That's what they've applied
Okay.
to amend, yes. To
As
change the minimum.
as one of the other persons said here, you want to redevelop that lot, put a nice new house on, bring it 10 feet ahead, 20 feet back, another story up, beautiful. The idea that the applicant is going to build a retirement home there when he's decreasing the property value of every single person in the neighborhood. One of the people just bought a house there, probably paid $100,000 extra just for the view, and they're going to lose it. Would you want to live your retirement inside a community surrounded by people who you just seriously
So,
cost
Mr. Quigley,
hundreds of thousands of dollars in property values to?
Mr. Quigley, you need to stick to the zoning.
Okay, I'm sorry, but your zoning application, this zoning application is going to affect my property value. I might not have any right to that view, but the fact of the matter is, those property values are going to go down. I also have very serious concerns about the water usage. I live in Mariahtown. When I moved in here, I stuck a shovel in the ground, you go down a foot and you'd hit water. I had a rainwater system collection for my gardens, and after 3 years here, there was not enough rain to sustain it. I went down 6 feet to plant a tree last year, I didn't find water. This is global warming, this is climate change, this is in the directives that you're supposed to be planning for the future. Can you guarantee that we're gonna have water? What is the plan when our wells run dry? Maybe that's gonna happen anyway, maybe that's gonna be accelerated by development. But it's not just this lot, you're about to set a precedent here. As it said, the other next door neighbor on the north side already has plans to subdivide their lot. There's 4 or 5 others right there that can be subdivided. How many are you going to allow? It's a nice little neighborhood. Do we need to start chopping it up about money? This is not about housing. This is not about affordable housing. There's going to be nothing affordable built here. There's going to be no poor people moved into this neighborhood. This isn't alleviating a crisis. This is somebody cashing out on the lot that they have, and it's going to affect a lot of people. And I'd ask you just please to take that into consideration before you make your decision. Like I say, this is not a legal thing. You're asking for a precedent to be set. micro little lots everywhere in a nice neighborhood like that, I don't understand it.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Councilor Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, Ms. Moran, can you explain to the public?
And for everyone in the room, do you, or maybe Ms. Zandbelt can explain how a pump test works on a well, how they do the water recharge rate, and how they calculate that? Is that, do either of you have that information? It would have been done as part of the application. I just wonder if it can be.
I did briefly go over that. Is not my area of expertise, unfortunately, and we do rely on South Nation Conservation Authority to review the hydrogeological report. I did sort of briefly read over it again and just to familiarize myself with it, and it did say that that they do suggest that the well that they tap into is at the same depth as the well that is on the property as it is, as there's adequate water supply. And they did say that the water supply was there was a lot of quantity for it.
Thank you.
Any other oral presentations to be made? Yes, please step forward.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and everybody else here. My name is Ron Wilson. I did not come prepared to issue a particular statement or ask a whole lot of questions. I live on Coyle Drive, not very far from the far side of Mariatown. And I have a couple of things just relating to the policy that is apparently going on. I think I would agree with a whole lot of what Linda LaFortune has just said. What you're apparently looking at doing is creating some kind of approval process where there should be none. And I'm wondering if I or somebody else has a lot somewhere and we say we'd like to have approval for construction of a house or something else, we don't need to abide by the rules. If we got half the frontage that is specified, that's okay. If we have half the lot size that is specified, that's okay. And I think you should look into that very seriously before you start saying, okay, not that this one lot is in itself an issue, but if it's setting a precedent that says every place we go in the municipality, we don't have to abide by the rules. And I'm wondering, is there any guideline that you have to follow? You can from what I'm hearing, you can go to half of what is specified. And I would have thought that you would, if you had any guidelines, it would have said council might approve something within 5 or 10 or 12%, but half, a little more than half in one of these, whether it's I don't remember the numbers that were given here, but either the frontage or the minimum lot area. Not even close, and I think you should be very careful about going in that direction. That was it. Just to say, it sounds like we're going in a kind of a very weird and strange direction here.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Ms. Moran?
So the D-Series guidelines are provincial. They're the guidelines that the South Nation Conservation Authority uses in order to look at the water quality, quantity, and skilled area. And there's a lot of things that we do look at, and specifically the province wants us to err on the side of caution, and that's where that 1 acre sort of typically comes from, because when we err on the side of caution, we think worst case scenario. We think that developability, it's the least favorable soil condition. All soil, there are a lot of local qualities that affect the developability of a property, and that's why we sort of front-loaded the process for this application specifically to make sure that there would be a developable area for the property. So unfortunately, the province doesn't provide us any sort of guidelines predicting what's to come, the future, the climate. We've addressed climate change. We've heard about climate change a lot tonight. But unfortunately, the guidelines that we have, the tools that we have to use in our toolbox that the province has given us don't address the things to come.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Olson. Any further submissions for tonight? Any further submissions for tonight? Final word? Tracy?
Thank you. Again, Tracy Zander from Zanderplan. I certainly appreciate your taxpayers' comments. This is their community. I guess I would just say each application that may come before you in the future, if other people want to divide land, every single one has to be evaluated on its own merits. Everybody who wants to create lots that are undersized have to demonstrate through the kinds of studies and reports that the Notmans did that the lot will work. And so I appreciate the comment about precedent, but again, I would stress to you, everybody who wants to do this has to demonstrate the viability, the development envelope on the lots on each, case by case. Each one gets evaluated on its own merits. So I think this application has demonstrated that both of these lots can work. The policy framework is there. Whether we like it or not, that's the policy framework we work in Ontario under the Planning Act, the provincial policy statement, and the official plan. And so this proposal does meet the intent of those policies. So I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I get a clarification on that?
So,
And each
No.
bylaw that you enact becomes the law and becomes legal precedent?
so
I was to sue over
So-
you not letting me make...
I think we've answered, thank you, Mr. Quigley, but we've answered, Tracy has answered the question. Each time a submission needs to be made, the regulations need to be followed in that case. Final, any other oral submissions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
In the criteria for the hydrology reports, are they looking only at what is happening now when they test that well? Or are they looking at what will happen 10, 20 years down the road? Do they only look at what is here and now? We don't even look 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years away. We don't even talk to another homeowner who says the water table has gone down. Am I correct in stating that it's only the here and now that is considered?
Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, and I really don't want to get into debate with this, but you keep saying about the neighbor says our water table goes down, our neighbors, what scientific fact does our neighbors have, and I'm a neighbor, what scientific fact does a neighbor have that our water tables went down?
He digs in the dirt.
I have extensive
However,
gardens and planting.
is that-
There's a
is-
pump system in the back of my yard.
Okay,
that
we need to,
pumps the water as-
Thank
Ruling,
you.
I have the floor, please.
Yep, Mr. Quigley, thank you.
Could you confirm, though, that that test is only based on what's happening here and now, with no projection to the future and no historical analysis of where the water tables have gone?
I would hate to confirm that just because it's not my area of expertise. I would be happy to bring that question back to James Holland at South Nation Conservation Authority and their hydrology team.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to close the public meeting at this time. It's a tough job we do. Our residents depend on us in a public meeting where decisions need to be made between several residents, where someone may be successful or unsuccessful. You've successfully made your argument, and I thank you for that, and I can commend your efforts, your research, and the money all parties have put forward at this time. Under this discussion, the bylaw motion is under agenda item 9E. So at this time, I will close the public meeting. Can I have a motion to do so? Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino, that the public meeting of the considered zoning bylaw amendment be closed at 6:43 PM. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Moran. Thank you very much. Okay, under delegations, we have Cornwall City Human Services, Lisa Smith. Is she joining us by, oh, there she is. Sorry, Lisa, I saw you earlier today and I didn't see you sitting there. We'll just pause for a moment as we prepare the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Lisa.
Good evening, Council.
Yeah.
So I'm here with you this evening to speak to a vacant land report that we have brought forward. I believe I was here in the winter to discuss the progress we were making around our affordable housing planning, and I had alluded at the time that we'd probably be back to make a land request, and that's why I'm here with you today. So, as you are aware, the City of Cornwall, as the service manager for Cornwall and SDNG, is actively building a long-term revitalization plan. We have had a consultant study prepared in terms of the number of units that we need to build for the community and how that affordable housing development should be spread across the region, not just in the City of Cornwall. So we are now at the point where we're ready to start to look at parcels of land and actually start to now bring in a consultant to work with us around those parcels. The next step would be looking at the...
Excuse me, Ms. Smith, pause for a second. Excuse me, members of the audience. Members of the audience, if you wish to continue conversations, please leave the room. We have a presentation ongoing. Thank you very much. Sorry, Ms. Smith.
That's okay. So we're now at the point where once parcels are identified in the inventory, that we would start to look at testing those parcels for geotechnical to determine the soil, also doing archaeological and topographical so we could determine what to build on them and look at potentially developing draft site plans. So we'd be able to say specifically in this parcel, we'd be able to put this many units of this type. Where we are currently with our builds, we have 3 properties that are currently in develop. One of them will be just down the road from this office, so we're very happy to be building in the community of Morrisburg. Our initial phase will bring in 17 units of housing to the area, so we're very, very pleased to be able to do that. And this is addition to the 77-unit property at 559th Street, which should be occupied by July 10th with residents. And then also as well, a property that we are looking to develop on Pitt Street North, which is just adjacent to the 401 corridor. So as you can see, we're actively trying to add community housing stock to this region. But again, I just want to reinforce that our intention is to build mixed communities, right? So have a mix of what we would call rent geared to income level rent, affordable level rents, and then what we're also calling attainable market, which would allow people at a higher level of income to also move into that community, because our intention really is to start to reduce the stigma that exists around community housing properties and really to build a true community where residents could live and work together. The vacant land list that I am going to walk you through tonight was developed by our home collaborative, and again, we have representatives from each municipality who has sat on that collaborative to help us to identify land. This land also has been generously reviewed by Peter Young, who also works for the County of SDNG, again, just to give us that perspective from the rural communities in terms of land availability and opportunity to develop. And this morning, we heard from the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus about their 7 in 7 plan. So there is, I think, now a consensus in this region, I would say, because I believe it was signed, the order, that the area is going to partner in this plan. So the intention is to build 7,000 affordable housing units in 7 years across Eastern Ontario. Our area is actively one of those participating regions. So again, potential development in your community would help to build into that plan and be a part of a larger regional strategy that is happening in the area. So at this point, there are potentially 3 pieces of vacant land. The one that's highlighted in pink actually is a road easement that we need for the property in Morrisburg, but that is technically owned by the county, so we will be requesting that of them, but we did want to make you aware that we will also be going to them for land acquisition as well. The other 2 pieces are areas in green that we have green lit, essentially, that we think are good fits for building future community housing on those. I understand the larger property that sits at 14.3 acres currently is for sale by the municipality. However, what we would request is about 4 to 5 acres of that be set aside for community housing development, potentially to partnership with, I know, another tiny home project that had approached this area as well. So we're open to that level of collaboration around developing properties. The third and final piece is about a 2.8 piece of property that is available that we think also would be a good fit. Why we like these properties is they are municipally serviced or close to existing municipal services that we could build as part of our site plan approvals to bring them over. So again, with that larger property, we'd ask that whatever potentially could be allocated to affordable housing would be put closer to that servicing. So essentially at this point, I've walked you through kind of the key intention of where we're going. I think our recommendation this evening is to put forward that we're looking for these parcels to be allocated for future community housing development. We have put some rough timelines of when we think we could be developing those properties based on, funding, construction, and a variety of different factors. And at this point, I'll turn it over to council for questions.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. Certainly our housing needs continue to grow, and we want to look at any opportunities we can for any of these. And this is great to kick us off into maybe our future strategic planning sessions that we're gonna do here in the next few months. So that's great. Quick question: Cornwall ST Housing, do we have any locations in Iroquois today?
We do. We have existing seniors housing in Iroquois. What we'd be looking to build is housing that's beyond seniors. So it could be for single non-seniors or families as well.
Families as well. Very good. Thank you. Questions, comments from the council?
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. We've had 2 presentations today, as we saw you this morning at County Council, so very, very versed in what's happening.
If I could just be, Mr. Mayor, before I exit, would be what we are looking hopefully is to get a motion to defer this decision to administration, and we are hoping to have some sort of feedback or approval by August, just in terms to line up for the work of our consultant. So I just wanted to make you aware of the timelines.
Okay. Maybe I can direct staff, we can put a report together for our next council meeting.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Okay, we'll move to 8A, high water consumption policy, CAO Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you. Good evening, council, staff, and all the members of the public that are watching, but also watching behind. I want to bring a key information report to you tonight on high water consumption and the policy for consideration. Council at times, and certainly staff, will get calls where from a constituent, whether it's residential or commercial, where water is consumed by a dwelling that is excessive, sometimes 3, 4, 10 times what is normal, and constituents or businesses will get a bill. We certainly go out and check the meter in question to make sure it's functioning, and usually it is functioning, it's not a misread. And the typical issues are leaky toilets, faucets, water running, sump pumps. And the case is often where residents may have gone away on vacation or they just weren't aware. We do not have a policy as a municipality that will allow administration to write off the water component of the bill. And this came to the attention of staff and administration after someone brought it forward recently from the municipality. So we did a little bit of an analysis, and I won't go through every one, but you'll see there's different things going on in different lower tiers in Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. Maybe I can highlight 3. If you're looking at South Stormont, there's one-time relief. Consumption is up to 5 times or 500%. Requests made to the finance, it's a long list there, which sometimes it doesn't need to be a real long list. It can be common sense, but we certainly need a policy or else we're just going to be picking them off. You'll see North Glengarry requests through the Public Works Manager that makes a recommendation to a committee. The interesting one there is it's a $100 non-refundable appeal fee, so when you're talking about a large amount for a constituent, but also the staff, there's extra staff time involved, that might be one for council to consider. And it's also one-time relief, there's a theme here, and in South Glengarry, it's one-time relief. Requests go to the Director of Water, Wastewater. The treasurer often will answer these questions, or the Director of Water, Wastewater, or Infrastructure. And then it might land on the CEO's desk, but before it gets there, it's usually going to a council member because of the amounts. On number 7, council would maybe consider some of the options that we provided there. And it's also something to keep in mind, there's equal, so on one side of the coin, it would be, everyone's treated the same no matter what. And then if you're the one that gets the bill, then there's the equity piece on it, where not everybody is necessarily always 100% of the time treated the same. And I think if you go out and you explain it to constituents that, we are going to look at this, that many would agree that, they might agree that it's unfair to get relief, but if it was them, it might be a different story. So we'll open it up for questions or consideration from council. There's 3 options there: to do nothing, update to write-off, or update to conditional write-off.
Thank you, CEO Mills. Yeah, there's one comment too as well I can add to that is the revenue is not lost revenue because it was never in our budget in the first place, because we never planned for a resident or a commercial industry to have a one-time malfunction causing loss of water. So we're not subtracting anything from revenues in this example. But questions or comments from the council team? Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor, but I was just curious, that's kind of on your theme a little bit. Is there a way to measure how much it's costing the municipality in terms of chemicals or any of that, if let's say there's a certain volume of waste? Is there a calculation that, or a cost?
CEO Mills?
There is a way. I don't have the exact way in front of me, but a majority of the cost would be on chemical. That's why you would have a committee with Director of Water, Wastewater, Treasurer, CAO, or other member of the administrative team to look into things, because there's the money side, then there's actually delivery of service side, and then there's the administrative side of the time it costs for us to look at it.
Okay.
Councilor Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. So I don't have very many questions about this. I just have some comments, and obviously it's up for council discussion, but I think I'd like to see this program made as easy as possible. That way it cuts back on administrative time. I'm in favor of a one-time relief, one billing cycle, but I feel that they need to have a receipt from a plumber that, has addressed the issue. I also feel that commercial industrial should not have one-time relief, because they should be inspecting their appliances or whatnot on a daily kind of occurrence. And then I also feel that vacant land should definitely, or buildings should definitely not be considered, because their water should be off. So those would be my comments on how I'd like to see it. I don't think we need to have a fee for an application. I think that the individuals coming to us they're coming to us because of financial hardship. I don't want to add to that. So one-time relief is kind of what I'm going towards.
Councilor Vino?
I'd just echo that, to be honest. Mistakes happen and accidents happen, and God forbid somebody goes away on their vacation and comes back and has a water bill through the roof because of something that, broke or whatever. So I would also be in favor of a conditional write-off policy, and I like all the comments, in fact, that Councillor Ward made about, prerequisites or conditions of that. So.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Brada, I tend to agree. The only one that I do believe is, I think the one-time relief should be across the board, because we do have a lot of businesses, smaller commercial businesses that may not operate on the weekends or something, and they kind of leave their shop, they go back on the Monday, something has happened. So I would just say I would like to extend that. If it's one-time relief, it should be across the board. Would be my only opinion on that.
Yes, and to add on to that, proof of repair, and it's the same incident can't happen ever again, right? They're paying that malfunction or breakdown, so they would, it's on their, to Councilor's Ward point, they need to have inspections in place going forward, et cetera,
I
right?
agree.
Yeah, yeah. Councilor Ward?
My only comment to that, to the Deputy Mayor's point, and I'm amenable to that, that's fine. Just maybe we might want to set a cap, because we do have some large industrial water users that if they ever had that would be a very large, correct. So I think maybe just, if administration could consider that, they might have a better idea of how much a water bill is for those users. It might just be best to set a cap there.
Right, and okay, yep. And the cap could include then cost of that water, or chemicals to that water, up until a point or whatever, right? Councilor Vino?
Just if we go through some of the examples that CAO Mills provided, a lot of the municipalities around us do have caps, so there are some examples of kind of, and it looks to be around the $1,000 to $1,500 range. So that would exclude most of those major failures that could happen at the larger plants in our municipality, right? So we have some examples to run with there.
Okay, so direction at this point is to update with a conditional write-off policy. So I'll have a motion that council directs staff to proceed with updating a conditional write-off policy in regards to high water consumption policy. Councilor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, all in favor? Carried. Okay, 8B, financial statements. Treasurer Stewart, welcome. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this report is to request Council's approval on the 2022 audited financial statements. The financial statements were originally presented by Jamie Pollock from MMT on May 23rd. Also included in the report, MMP did provide us a management letter, so we are reviewing and addressing the suggestions noted on the management letter. And I guess finally, included in the report, the surpluses from 2022 are being transferred to the reserves based on the summary provided. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Treasurer Stewart. We enjoyed Jamie's lengthy presentation at our last meeting. Went through the numbers in detail and reviewed the management letter. So I think everything is in order. Any questions or comments at this point? Seeing none, I have a motion that council accepts report FS 2023-02 to approve the financial statements as presented by MNP LLP on May 23rd, 2023. Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Action request 8C, Iroquois Plaza additional electrical panel. We have Director of Recreation Parks and Facilities, Mr. David Jansen, with us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So in front of you is just a report with regards to a request that I received from a bit of the Apple Fest Committee, a little bit of the Golden Gears. They were looking to get a little bit more power at the Iroquois Plaza. I told them I'd look into it for them and come to council and see if we could find some funding for it. My recommendation within the report you'll see there is that we don't really move forward with it. I think the long-term costs on it would be, we'd be adding an electrical service, so the cost to us would be, we've all seen our bill, you know, half of your bill isn't actually for the power you use, it's for getting it to you. So it would be $500 to $800 a year, I'd estimate. That's $60 a month just to keep the power on there, plus the upfront cost of installing an additional panel at the plaza, which is about $5,000. If you look at generator rentals for if they're hosting an event where they need more than just a 20 amp plug, you can rent a generator. And Sunbelt, I know I included some Sunbelt quotes in there. Sunbelt isn't always the cheapest option, but their prices are readily available online. So I think as much as I'd love to increase the electrical service and the infrastructure that we have at the plazas, unfortunately it isn't exactly the best electrical service for hosting an event. And that's sort of where the recommendation landed. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you through you, Mayor Broad. So if we did upgrade the panel, that would resolve any of the electrical issues that the events have, right?
Through you, Mayor Broad. So yeah, they'd end up with a 100 amp service, which is typical to your house and should be able to handle some of the event stages that they bring in right now. So there's a 20 amp plug there, but we'd be going to a 100 amp panel with 3 separate 20 amp services.
Okay. I'm going to be quite honest with you, through you, Mayor Broad. I would rather just go ahead and get this fixed and get the panel upgraded. And, you know, we are witnessing more and more events. We want more events. We want to encourage more events. I think this is something that we should just do. It's $5,000. I don't think it's going to break our bank at any point. And be quite frank with you, I think it's needed. I mean, I see not the couple hundred people that come through in our events. It's thousands of people, and I know it's been problematic having, you know, generators and whatnot in and around. We've got a pavilion that we've supported getting built as well that should have good permanent power for any events that anybody wants to host. I'm actually okay with spending the money on this, to be my opinion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Vino.
I tend to agree with the Deputy Mayor, especially considering the events are being held in our plazas, and we have business operators there that operate their business here in South Dundas, and that brings lots of business through their doors, presumably. I mean, I was at Apple Fest last year, and I was frankly shocked at how large that was, and very pleased with that. So yeah, I think it's something I'm comfortable with.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad. David, where exactly did they want to install this panel?
So through you, Mayor Broad.
If it goes in, where exactly is it?
It would be sort of where the farmer's market is, sort of south of the Adirondack chair and the flagpole there. So there's a service that comes from what I would refer to as the old medical clinic, the building that just got moved.
Okay.
There's a service that comes in there, so that's where we'd get a new meter and a 100 amp panel, an outdoor 100 amp panel there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councilor Vino?
So that's the island kind of... Right where the Adirondack chairs are? That same grass island? Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, Councilor Ward?
I think, Mayor, my comment I'm agreeable with my colleagues, and I'd just like to say too that the Iroquois Business Group does a lot of fundraising for our community and charities that help our community, members of our community. So I think this $5,000 ask is such a small request and will probably generate more than $5,000 in tax revenue over time. So I'm definitely in favor of that.
Great. I think I'm supportive as well. If I think about all the volunteers that are in that location, they're not necessarily all businesses where we may look at cost recovery for electricity, but since there's a lot of folks that would be using it on a volunteer basis on that. So from what I'm hearing from council is we'd prefer option 2 is to installation of a 100 amp panel. So do I have a motion to Deputy Mayor? Okay, sorry, any more questions or comments? Yes. Yeah.
So, David, I guess the question for you is how quick?
I'll ask the contractor tomorrow.
Yeah, Councilor Vino?
I just do have one quick. As far as maintenance and curation of that, so like the panel will obviously be enclosed and locked, so John Q. Public can't just go and plug into the power and charge their iPhone. So do they come to Parks and to you to open that up for events? That's how that, okay, all right. I just want to make sure that everybody knew that it was sealed up and it can't just be used by anybody. Yep.
Very good.
No,
Yep. Thank you. So we would look to support the installation of a 100 amp panel. Do I have a motion for that? Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. So all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Director Jansen. Sorry for giving you some more work. Okay, item 8D, Pride Month and raising of the Pride flag, CO Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you. As most people know, I'm new to the municipality. I guess I'll be finishing my first month after this week. June is recognized as Pride Month.
We're just going to pause for a moment as CO Mills is Microphone is failing.
So in the first few weeks, I've been asked by staff and members of the community, and indeed attended an event at Seaway District High School for the Pride Crosswalk, and then decided to bring this report to councils. In the past, the municipality of South Dundas has not formally recognized Pride Month, nor has the Pride rainbow flag been raised at any municipal buildings. We have a responsibility to do much more community engagement, just not related to Pride, and outreach and staff training in relation to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And those of us that have taken the training or in our workplace or in the community recognize that as DEI training. And I can assure you that administration's committed to that in the future in South Dundas. It is recommended that Pride Month be formally recognized by the municipality, that the proclamation be posted on the municipal website, and that the rainbow flag be raised at the office in Morrisburg here, to be determined, with the flag remaining raised for the balance of Pride Month. I noted that June is recognized as Pride Month, and it's a positive stance against discrimination and violence towards the LGBTQ community. And there's a couple of things there in terms of dignity, visibility as a social group, building community, and celebrating diversity and gender variance. And I'd like to remind everyone that this year seems to be a little bit different than past years with the recognition of Pride. There is definitely a rise in online comments and hate and attempts to push back towards the progress that we have made as communities. A resolution by council that recognizes Pride Month supports the municipality's commitment to DEI and increases awareness and celebrates equality, inclusion, and empowerment. Granted, throughout the year, council recognizes organizations, individuals, and various events to highlight many public contributions and achievements. Recognition can take the form of resolutions, proclamations, certificates, letters, and plaques. And you may also be asked to display specific flags on the flagpole at the municipal office or elsewhere to commemorate a cause or event. There is something that's, in my observation, missing, whether I'm asked or you're asked or a member of administration is asked. But what is evident, and I'll finish with this and turn it over to you, Council, is I was at the ceremony at Seaway District last Friday, and it had already been the sidewalk, by the way, which was donated by Tomlinson, so at no cost to the municipality, was defaced. And during the ceremony, there was also a visible case of hate that took place while all of us were standing there. We need to do always a better job with communication, but it's also harder to do it without a proclamation or for it to be recognized. And I'll just end at the costs associated with the recommendation are for pride flags only, and that we will continue to work with the community on this to ensure that there aren't costs.
Thank you, CEO Mills. And if you were with me last Friday, very difficult time, as I truly believe in inclusion, diversity, equity, as also and accessibility as well. So I think it's really important for myself that we continue to face bullying and hatred and treat everybody equally. Comments? Thank you. Yes, Council.
It's just going to be at the municipal building here, not all municipal, just here, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Can I have a motion that Council Municipality of South Dundas formally recognize Pride Month and that the proclamation be posted on the municipal website and that the Pride rainbow flag be raised at the municipal office in Morrisburg on a date to be determined with the flag remaining raised for the balance of the Pride Month. Moved by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. And just as a follow-up on asks we get, we were asked to fly the Union Jack when King Charles was coronation a few months ago, and we did. Community Living has asked us to have the blue and green lights, and we've did. We have a request during Air Cadet Week, we have the Air Cadet flag. So we'll continue to, talk about these things and recognize folks, and it's just part of recognizing and remembering that we always should do the right thing. So anyways, those requests continue to come at us, and if residents have requests, please ask. Okay, bylaws, 9A, CAO appointment. I have a motion.
Yes.
Clerk LeBrun, would you
Okay, sorry.
The motion is simple, so I'm just going to read it. If you
Please do.
Okay,
Please do.
I have a motion that it be resolved that Council of South Dundas hereby appoints Tim Mills as Chief Administrative Officer for the Municipality of South Dundas and hereby appointing signing authority of the Municipality of South Dundas. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. It's now by bylaw, COA Mills. We have another one for a bylaw officer appointment. Let it be resolved that the bylaw 2023-46 being a bylaw to appoint Tyler Thomas as a bylaw enforcement officer for the Municipality of South Dundas be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, sealed, and open council on this 19th day of June 2023. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Tyler joined us a while ago and now is a bylaw enforcement officer. Marriage officiant appointment. Maybe Clerk LeBrun, you want to speak on this briefly as to what this entails?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And through you, Mayor Broad, this bylaw before you is to appoint Tia Fraser-Dupuis as a marriage officiant with the Township of South Glengarry. So marriage officiants is a service that we provide here, and we do have some, the former clerk Brenda Brunt is currently our main officiant. However, there's been an increase of demand in officiating ceremonies, so we've appointed Tia to assist with the volume of these requests. So she'll be able to perform officiating services once this bylaw is passed.
Very good. So I have a bylaw for South Dundas, 2018-26, be repealed in its entirety, and that bylaw 2023-47 being a bylaw to delegate authority to Tia Fraser-Dupuis to perform civil marriages, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. And number 9D, flag policy amendment. So I have a motion here, as we had an action request for the flag. This is that to change policy 1.4 be amended as presented to include the flying of the Progress Pride flag during the month of June. I have a motion for that. Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. (9E), Notman zoning bylaw amendment. I will read the motion. I will then ask if there's any discussion or further questions, and then I'll call the vote. The bylaw number 2023-40 being a bylaw to rezone Part 2 of 8R 5887, being the severed portion of consent application B 13522 from resident hamlet to resident hamlet special exemption 33 and rezone Part 1 of 8R 5887, being the retained portion of the consent application number B13522 from resident hamlet to resident hamlet special exemption 34, be read and passed in open council. I'll get a mover and a seconder and then discussion. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. Discussions or further questions from the council team? Councillor Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to make a comment that this council has set a precedence that we make decisions based on data. The data has been supplied to the counties for the severance. They've reviewed it. South Nation has reviewed it. to me, if we have the data that supports this severance and this rezoning, I understand that there's comments about the future, but we don't know what the future holds, and until we get direction from the province or we get further guidelines, we can't make those decisions. So while I hear everyone's comments and I understand them, I just think it's important to note that we're making a decision based on the data that's been provided to us. And based on the data, it seems, and Ms. Moran's comments, that this is something that we can do, and I'm supporting.
Very good. WR?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Broad, I have a list of things I want to say because I heard some stuff this evening that I'm going to be honest with you, I don't 100% agree with you. As Councillor Ward just alluded to, there was a hydro-G study completed by engineers who are licensed to perform such a report in Ontario. South Nation Conservation Authority has reviewed, and both have concluded that the data, as Councillor Ward said, the data of today, yes, and I agree, it doesn't talk about the future in 20 years, but the data of today says that an additional residential unit can be placed and a well can be dug and there is sufficient drinking water. I heard a couple times about, well, why doesn't the owner just go ahead and build a bigger home? Well, if you build a bigger home, that has the same climate, may have the same climate effect as if there was two smaller homes. It's not that de facto, it's just an opinion. May need a larger well, may need a larger septic if they have a larger home. But that's not the case, they're looking for a second home. We talk about property value. There's been a lot of development that's occurred in our little hamlet of Mariatown. Just recently a neighbor of mine sold their house and it was a pretty darn good value, probably a value of what it was pre-COVID for sure. So the value of homes is not going down, it keeps increasing. Even with the slow market, the value of homes keep increasing. There was a comment about they didn't abide by the rules. They did abide by the rules. There's a planning act that says if somebody wants to sever its property or make a property smaller, there's an application process. And the owner followed the process to a T, probably beyond to a T. I don't know too many residential properties that actually go out and get a hydro-G study done. They did. Again, it concluded that there was adequate drinking water as today. You know, we talk about housing and where we want more houses, and it always seems like it's a fight of not in my backyard, but it's good in your backyard. I know that just recently that there was a policy that there might have been a third lot created on agricultural land. That got turned down. Why? Because they didn't want it, because they thought because of noise, because they thought of dust and pollutions in the air that they shouldn't go to the third lot. We need houses, and our urban centers, our urban land is getting smaller and smaller. We need infill properties, and this is what this property is. It's an infill property. Yes, it's a smaller home. Yes, it's a smaller lot, but it's a house. It's a house. It's not a parking lot. It's a house. And I'm just stunned at why this is such a contentious issue. It's a house. And if there's if the neighbor down the road wants to do the same thing, and they find out through a hydro-G study that there isn't enough water, then at that time they're not going to be able to do their rezoning or their severance or whatever. And it's a process that has been followed. The science clearly shows that a house can be accommodated on that lot. So I think you know where I'm going with this, is that I'm in favor of this rezoning.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And from Councilor Reno?
Just to echo the points that we're a fact-based council and the evidence has been provided to us, and so I'm also in favor of the zoning amendment.
Okay. Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate all the comments, and I certainly appreciate the public meeting, our first one that had attendees speak at, so we will continue to improve on our agenda and how we work through those. Definitely appreciate Councillor Ward and Deputy Mayor's conversations and discussions about using data and following the rules. A few months ago, we'd come across some properties where they hadn't followed any of the rules and were looking for exceptions, and I think this is certainly a case. And when residents follow the rules and make applications, then the planning department will make the right decisions based on data. So appreciate the Nottmans for following all the correct rules set forth. So having read the motion, it was to allow the hamlet to be rezoned, moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Moran. Thank you, guests. If you want to leave, that is no problem, as we'll continue along. Our next item is item 9F, Director of Fire Emergency Services. So, CO Mills, yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to inform council tonight that on a one-year term, we have an acting Director of Fire and Emergency Services, Jeremy Aldred Hughes. For the last number of months, council is certainly aware that the present director has been on leave. I want to thank Clerk LeBrun and other administrative staff who've certainly stepped in with the support of council to support the fire service. And also, I've had a chance to be out visiting a few members in the fire service and thank them for what they continue to do. So,
excellent.
Over to you.
Yeah, excellent. So I have a bylaw, the bylaw 2350 being a bylaw to appoint Jeremy Aldred Hughes as Acting Director of Fire Emergency Services for the municipality of South Dundas be read and passed, signed, and sealed in open council. And that bylaw 2023-21 being a bylaw to appoint Crystal LeBrun as Acting Fire Chief be rescinded in its entirety. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Clerk LeBrun, you're not allowed to vote. So to Jeremy, who's going to be joining us in the next few days and officially next Monday, the position of fire chief is a fundamental providing effective leadership, which is going to be key for us moving forward to the morale of the South Dundas Fire Service. I'm super excited, having met Jeremy a couple times already, to join our team. He has strong leadership skills and experience, including working with the town of Kirkland Lake in emergency management, but most importantly, he has evident passion for the job and for the community. Through the interview process, we come to find out he has extensive experience in training that will be a value added to our fire service and the leadership team as we continue to onboard new recruits and to continue to train our firemen up to the NFPA standards. So welcome aboard, Jeremy, if you're listening with us. Thank you. Okay. 10A, council representatives. I can start. I can start with a brief update from the SDG counties meeting, which was earlier today. We did have, I'll just mention this because we had him. Jamie Pollock was there to review the financial statements, and we had Lisa Smith as well as Melissa Morgan there, and we went through the housing report, and we had extensive discussions about the Warden's Caucus. And the Warden's Caucus is basically from Land Lakes in front of Kawarthas all the way to the east, and how those folks work. One of the key things that we did talk about, and I thought was super important to us, and I'm going to just bring up Ben DeHaas and the Transportation Department made a statement about County Road 31 and County Road 18. So county staff have been made aware of the accidents that have recently occurred on that intersection in Williamsburg. And it is a controlled stop on County Road 18 and a throughway on 31. It is an older village with historic buildings at the intersection, very close to the road. In the past, this intersection has functioned with relatively few incidents, so 0 collisions in 2019 and 18. But more recently, there's been a trend. We had 1 collision in 2020, 2 collisions in 2021 and 2022, and in 2023 we have had 6 collisions already. So the collision reports are made available soon to the county, and they are going to do some investigation and review the information and determine next steps, whether engineering interventions, further analysis, et cetera, et cetera. I do know, I can add on, we've done a similar project at County Road 7 and 43, where we're working on that intersection, so it is on the radar. It is a county road, both are county roads, so I just want to say that counties are going to look at it, and we will obviously be engaged and support what we can do at that time. But for our local residents, stopping at County Road 18 and taking a good look twice, being a minute late, would be better than causing another accident. So please recognize that there's been some accidents there, and let's take our time at that intersection. At the counties also today, they reviewed the mileage policy, and they're going to follow the CRA standard. We had reports through all of our committees. And I don't think anything else specifically affected South Dundas, other than the bridge repair in North Dundas is underway. Some of our new residents pass through there. Good news is traffic through there is 1,000 less cars a day than predicted. So typical traffic through that bridge was 3,000 cars. They thought that would relate to 3,000 cars through Chesterville. They're only seeing 2,000 cars, so that's been an excellent reduction, as people are just finding other routes right now while that bridge is closed. Deputy Mayor, anything else you'd like to add from today?
No, I think you
think I covered it all? Okay. Other committee meetings in the last few weeks, I do have, the Economic and Development meeting. The Deputy Mayor, St. Pierre, attended last week. Just a couple things that come out of that. The requests and or through to the economic and tourism folks within the municipality. We're going to set up some South Dundas booths at one of the big baseball tournaments in July, and then for the final soccer day, just promoting tourism in South Dundas and activities for folks to do in South Dundas. So that was kind of cool on the tourism side. We also discussed the awards. So for the South Dundas Awards, there's a few days left to make application or nominations on folks. And we also started to discuss a South Dundas tourism magazine, and we also had a report. We reviewed the South Dundas report on youth, which I think Kayla was part of, who's here tonight, a few years ago. So we reviewed that youth report to give the new committee members an update on that. So that was it from our economic development meeting. Anything else to add, Deputy Mayor?
And I'm trying to think of the name of it. There was that one report that we were thinking about getting updated. You recall wasn't the youth? Remember that one report he brought? Was it the youth?
Oh, the one from the previous meeting?
Yeah,
we had the youth report, but
report.
It was an economic development study. Okay.
And we're going to get that one updated. Get that updated.
Yeah.
Because it was pre-COVID.
Correct.
Right.
Cool. Waterfront meetings.
Okay. Sure. Yes, I am. Just through you, Mayor Broad, on the Waterfront Committee meeting, we met, the Iroquois Committee met last Sunday evening. It was to test Mr. John Ross's lighting schematic. Councillor Smith and I attended. It was pretty cool. I mean, Mr. Ross has done a lot of work in sourcing these type of lights, measuring the lux and the formity of the lights along the pathway. He built his own stand, and I think they were 12 feet high, but I think he said 12 or 15 feet high, but then he needed to go a little bit higher. There was a number of people that attended, both from Iroquois and Mooresburg. Most people had pretty positive comments about it. So I think, we're going to work with Mr. Ross to see if this project can come to reality. So there's a little bit of legwork that the Director of Parks and Rec, David Jansen needs to do in consultation with CAO Tim Mills. So it's exciting. We do have another meeting coming up on Wednesday as well. And there is a report further down on
The minutes of the meeting and that.
Yeah. So we can talk about that later. But yeah, no.
From Morseburg Waterfront side, I was away the last couple of weeks, but I see that the grand opening of our new lookout and everything, and it seemed to go off well, and so well attended.
Yes, I was there.
Were you?
Yes, I was there. We had the ribbon cutting. We had former members of council and the committee attend as part of the ceremony, as they were the strong arms behind getting all that work done. And and the Leo benches were made an honor, which was very emotional for the families, but very nicely done. One point of comment that I learned is the middle point of the walkways with the flat structure with the north, south, east, west diagram. That is the middle of the original old town, and that marks that point, is what that represents. So when people ask exactly what is it, why is it there, it's the middle of the old town.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that was going on, and then we did have a meeting just before I departed where we met down at the dockside and went for a stroll, and we walked all of the parkland from Park Street to the river, and a lot of good came out of that walk, and I think everybody has a really good direction in mind that they'd like to go. And so on that note, there will be, I believe, a request coming to council for either a delegation or a committee meeting with council to kind of discuss some direction so that they can start to plan. We meet Wednesday night as well, so hopefully next meeting we'll have some more.
And maybe I could ask Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, Councillor Vino, maybe at your next meetings you could coordinate a combined meeting for July or August. Yep. Let's make that our first connection point, as you guys have met a few times now.
Yep.
And that would be interesting for some of the groups just to meet together as a whole and gather data and have conversations. Yeah.
And outside of Waterfront, I believe there was a BIA meeting while I was away. And Clerk LeBrun, did you attend the BIA meeting while I was away? What's that, sorry?
I was not in attendance.
You were not there?
No.
So we meet again, I don't have my schedule, but I'll bring a report back next
Very good.
meeting.
Very good. South Branch?
Thank you, Mayor. So South Branch did meet, and we are going to be coming back with a report to council about the 2 applications we're recommending that council consider. There's a little bit more legwork that I have to do with Clerk LeBrun to put that forward, but that'll be coming to council shortly.
Excellent. Thank you. South Nation? Or any other?
Thank you, Mayor Broad. South Nation last week on Thursday celebrated their 75th anniversary. So we had a meeting that afternoon and had the celebration afterwards. One of the things that is going to be coming soon, I know everybody's anxiously awaiting to hear about forest cover and how much it's decreased, and so they've just recently finished up some satellite imagery, LiDAR, I don't know if anybody, so hopefully shortly we should be able to get an exact number of exactly where we're standing at, like percentage-wise, and what a decrease has been. I think the last time it's been done was 10 years ago. So I know there's a lot of people looking to find out what that number is, so hopefully sometime this summer we'll be able to know.
That's excellent, because I also think about that often as I look at old pictures of the area where there are no trees at all, and then we've had trees. So very, very interested to know so we can communicate where South Dundas stands on that point specifically. Councillor Vino?
So just one thing to add on the BIA. One thing that Clerk LeBrun and the rest of the administration staff, along with the directors of the Chamber and the BIA, have been working together on a memorandum of understanding to better I guess show the roles and responsibilities of each of the groups, shared resources, shared responsibilities, and so they're going to be able to define that. That's the term I was looking for. Define those roles, and so they're working towards that hopefully in the coming couple months, I think, and it's been long awaited, and they're doing some good work there.
Yeah, I think it is somewhat of a priority for us to get that finished and worked on. Yeah. Any other boards or committees people attended? Just last one, I'll briefly comment. It was the Warden's Breakfast. Several of us attended to last Friday morning. It was a great networking event for lots of folks within SDNG and 5 great guest speakers that talked through many of the activities happening in North Dundas, and then the keynote speaker talking about mental health and getting through with use through the pandemic. But most importantly, we had a presentation about the Dundas Manor, as we're getting very close to getting that shovel in the ground at the Dundas Manor. So that's super excited, as South Dundas is a contributor to that, as well as our residents use that manor. That's within our lines of where folks end up. So that Dundas Manor project is really important. So I'm glad to see that was ongoing. Okay. Under consent agenda, we had the Morrisburg waterfront meetings, a report from the Shade Group on the Donald Haynes Branch realignment, Rideau St. Lawrence Family Health Funding Letter, a letter from Ministry of Natural Resources streamlining approvals, Corporation of Mississippi Mills on the rural education funding, Mississippi Mills on election protection, Pickering on the long-term funding, Cambridge on Highway Traffic Act, Township of Evan Rule stopping harassment and abuse by local leaders, Municipality of North Perth read the school bus stop arm cameras, Trent Lakes read the oath of office, Town of Plymouth, Wyoming reducing municipal insurance costs, and the Morrisburg BIA Pre-Canada Day event June 30th. Okay, could I have a motion to accept all those items listed under general consensus? Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, discussion items. Recommendation Iroquois Waterfront Committee re a charcoal bin. Who was speaking that directly? Director Jansen.
Sorry about that. Thank you again. So the Iroquois Waterfront Committee has been having some discussions and sort of wanted to, it's almost a little bit of a pilot. Like we had I think there was a pretty good discussion about a few different alternatives, permanent barbecues, not permanent barbecues. It's sort of a difficult one to come up with a perfect solution for. You're trying to stop garbage from ending up, or hot coals ending up in a garbage can, which leads to fire, or vice versa with this type of apparatus. But the committee has done some research and found this one, which I think it's a very reasonable price, and I think I have no problem supporting us trying it out, seeing how it goes, and if it does well, maybe we'll look into expanding into other locations, other parks, but that's about it.
Yeah, certainly parks through Ontario have charcoal barbecues and locations, so it's good to hear we're thinking of those things, as people do enjoy cooking that way, especially with their kids, for sure. Councillor Vino?
In light of the recent massive amounts of forest fires and grass fires, I think this is something that's kind of a bit of a priority. So it'd be nice to get it in and see how it works, and then hopefully we can expand that to the rest of our parks in a timely manner.
Yeah, because having the proper apparatus is better than makeshift apparatus,
absolutely.
To your point, I guess. Yeah, very good. Cool. Excellent. Thank you, Director Jansen. Okay, any notices of motion? Okay, 14, ratification, the bylaw 2351 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, ratify matters dealt with, resolution be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed, moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. 15, adjournment. Now the council adjourns to meet at the call of the chair. Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. So as we make our closing on tonight's municipality meeting for the municipality of South Dundas, I'd like to thank all those involved. I'd like to thank all the volunteers that have been out conducting events. And we have a lot of staff through all our departments been working out, and commend CIO Mills in his first few weeks, all the events and or staff members he's met with and getting onboarded quickly to make South Dundas much better place as we continue to move through our bylaws and motions and reviews. So thank you for that. So until next time, good evening.